Rift S versus the Valve Index. It's the question I've been getting asked repeatedly, and so in this video we're going to go through each feature and aspect of the headset and then say which one does better to hopefully help inform you guys. Yes, that's what's happening. Let's go. Right, so first things first, what I want to say is we've got reviews of both of these. And you know, when I do reviews, I don't hold anything back. I just go through the immediate sort of the things that stand out to me. But as a result, because VR is like the new fanboy arena, whenever I say something negative about the Rift S or the Index or whatever VR headset, you have all the fanboys of the fans of the other headset going, "Oh, I told you so, I told you so, it's terrible. Oh, I'm so glad I made this choice." And whenever I say something positive about the Rift S or the Index or some other headset, you know, it's exactly the same. It's like, "Oh, that fully justified why I bought this. And those of you that didn't get it for that reason, well, death penalty to you." So I just want to be clear, guys. I am a huge VR fan. And there's actually reasons to get all the VR headsets, and I can see why people would choose one over another anyway. And just stop being bloody fanboys, really. It's you know, you get it with the processors, you get it with the driving simulators, you get it with like consoles. Although let's be honest, AMD are smashing Intel right now. Competition. That's what it's all about, guys. The competition, because the more competition, the better, and that's what we're seeing with VR. It's what we're seeing with AMD. We're not seeing it with consoles so much at the moment. But anyway, so that's out of the way. All my money was spent on VR headsets, not food and not my mobile. First things first on my list here. Let's put my phone over there. First things first, field of view. Now, obviously, the field of view is a lot better on the Valve Index. Both the horizontal and the vertical field of view is much better on the Valve Index. More so the vertical field of view. The horizontal field of view is obviously more horizontal. Like if you go from headset to headset, the horizontal is more, but it's not like experientially game-changingly more horizontal field of view on this headset compared to Rift S. The vertical field of view though is substantially more than the Rift S, and I would say, having spent the last 2 days, I've literally just been going from headset to headset. I would say where the vertical field of view does come into play is that it does immerse you more in the world, and it definitely, when you've got games where you've got FPSs, for example, or anything where you're looking down at your body to go through inventory, like Stand Out or Pavlov, or, you know, you're grabbing stuff off your body, you're looking down, that vertical field of view, or if you're leaning over the edge of something, that vertical field of view does come into effect, and it does make quite a big difference. I mean, the field of view on the Rift S is fine. It's more than functional. You still experience VR. You know, you're still in a VR game. You still get that. You still feel like you're in VR. But you know, the Index definitely has more field of view, and it definitely does have, I'd say, a moderately large impact to making you feel a sense of presence. So the Index does relatively substantially beat out the Rift S when it comes to field of view. Don't expect the Rift S is not Pimax, the Rift S, the Index is not Pimax lateral field of view, but directly compared to the Rift S, it is substantially higher field of view. I think that's a fair way of putting it. So field of view, Index smashes the Rift S. Resolution. Now that's an interesting one, and again, having gone side by side from headset to headset, in terms of like actual functional resolution when using the headsets, they're both pretty similar. In terms of like you're looking straight ahead, general clarity, functional clarity of resolution, they're both pretty damn similar. The Valve Index is more, it does have less screen door, or it does have a higher actual resolution to it, combining that with the wider field of view. So it's probably quite a bit more resolution than the Rift S in actuality on the panel. But so if you're playing like a shooter game, or something, or your average VR game, the general resolution differences aren't going to be night or day between the headset. I would say aliasing is slightly better mitigated on the Index, and so sort of aliasing artifacts are more noticeable on the Rift S. So the Index does have a better resolution, especially when you consider it's a larger field of view. But for most people, in most situations, the resolution is fairly comparable between the two devices. But the Index does win on resolution. Now, of course, as well, you might, if you run like super sampling, then that mitigates artifacts and stuff. But at its core, the Index does have better resolution than the Rift S. So Index wins. It's not a competition, but the Index does have better resolution. Lens quality. Now, what do I mean by lens quality? Well, what I would define as lens quality is how good it is at mitigating ghosting, how good it is in terms of sweet spot, and how good it is in terms of the amount of image that's in focus once you've got your eyes in place and all that loveliness. And I have to say, the Rift S is easier to once you've got it on your head, it is easier to get it into place, to get an image of clarity, and the Rift S has less ghosting, sort of less bloom, and more general clarity as you look to the edges than the Index does. Now, this kind of mixed in the sense that the Index, because it's got wider field of view, where you start to see the image towards the end is getting a little bit slightly blurry. It's not blurry in a bad way. We're not talking like early VR headset blurry, but where it does start to get a little bit more blurry in the Index is basically on the additional field of view that this headset doesn't offer you, both vertically and horizontally. So in terms of like once you've got the actual sweet spot locked in, they're fairly comparable in terms of general crispness. So outside of that, I'd just say the ghosting is more obvious on the Index. You do see if it's a dark contrasting scene or there's just a bit of text there, you do see more ghosting off that text. In fact, text is actually a really good example. Now, to be clear again, and I'm trying to be as clear as possible here with everything, defining stuff very clearly, because people want to argue and I'll get confused. Being very clear, the text is legible in terms of the resolution on both headsets, and more so on this than this in terms of the resolution that we've already covered. But if you've got like any white text, so you can tell what the text is, even if it's large text or small text, what you do notice is if it's white text on a darker background, with the Index, you sort of see that ghosting coming off the text, which kind of makes it look as if it's a little bit out of focus in a sense, because you've got that ghosting effect. So you lose a degree of like the perceivable clarity of things when it comes to contrasting elements. So white text on black. Whereas with the Rift S, if you have contrasting text, because there's less ghosting, it gives you the sense that it's more in focus than it is. It's that kind of ghosting off the text isn't like game breaking in either case. It's not the end of the world, but you just notice that the Rift S has less ghosting, wider sweet spot, and in general, on balance, I would say, within its limited field of view, better lenses. But you are getting a wider field of view with this headset, and once it's in the sweet spot and locked in, it's crisp towards the edges, or good enough crisp towards the edges. But by the way, I have better than 20/20 vision, so that's not a brag. I've got better than 20/20 vision. Oh, look at all those babes coming towards me. But yeah, so the point is, Rift S lenses slightly beat out the Indexes if you ignore the aspect of the increased field of view of this headset. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but I'll give the lenses to the Rift S there. Well done, Facebook. Well done. Right, frame rate. Well, come on, guys, there's no argument. The Rift S runs at 80 Hz, so that's all you can get from it. Oh gosh, 80 hertz isn't much, is it? That's a small frame rate. Whereas the Index can go up to 144 hertz. What a beast! It's overclocked. So, I mean, obviously the Index absolutely smashes the Rift S, and I do think it does make quite a big difference. Now, I think some people on some channels have overstated the difference, and that the difference in some ways, in some situations, can be very subtle. So from a basic usability, the frame rate of, say, 120 hertz, which is more likely that you'll be running the headset at that, because good luck running a lot of VR games at 144. That is obviously there as an option. But so you're running this at 120 hertz. The general at a basic level. It does just feel a little bit smoother. You notice with like Beat Saber or shooting games, or it's like table tennis games, or anything where there's a small object that's moving quickly, or anything where you've got fast relative movement in a driving simulator when you're going around a corner at 120 hertz, or when you're moving the steering wheel in the driving simulator at 120 hertz. Things just look a lot more crisp. There's a lot less incremental points to when something's moving in terms of like the individual frames and steps. 120 hertz does make a difference. If you're just playing super casual VR stuff, or maybe you're just playing general single player VR stuff and you're not being particularly competitive, or you're not too fussed, then the Rift S frame rate is perfectly fine. It's not going to, like, the 80 hertz doesn't ruin VR, but the higher frame rate does make VR better. It does make it a little bit immersive, a little bit more immersive. And if you're playing sports games, or you're particularly going for high scores on stuff, then that might be a deal breaker for you. So anyway, the Index absolutely smashes the Rift S when it comes to frame rate, and it totally depends on your use case as to how significant that is. But I really like it. And I do think it is really good, because I like more competitive games, I like more sports games. So, well done Index for frame rate. Congratulations. Go to sound. And oh boy, the Rift S. Ah, God, you embarrass me. You embarrass me, Rift S. You're rubbish. You're rubbish at sound, aren't you? This thing is like, it sounds like a sparrow being stood on by a horse's hoof, you know? It's just muted and pathetic. That's the analogy that came to my head. I don't know what's wrong with me. But yeah, you know, this has a little headphones on the strap here, and it is the audio's garbage. It works at a basic level, like you can hear what's going on in the game. But if you crank up the volume, and often it's a bit too quiet, you can get like sort of popping and sort of audio distortion from it. It's not immersive. The audio on this is not immersive. It's detrimental to the VR experience. They absolutely failed on the audio on this. I mean, of course, you know, there's an audio socket, so if you've got your own headphones and that's what you want to do, then, you know, that's not going to bother you, and that might be preferential for certain people. I know loads of people that would rather use their own headphones. In which case, this actual strap design then kind of gets in the way of certain headphones, unless you're using in-ear headphones, which personally I don't find as comfortable, and, you know, user preference aspect to it, but in terms of the integrated audio on it, it's absolute trash on the Rift S. Whereas the Index audio, facial interchange removed. Man, I was like a gunslinger the way that came out there. Don't even know how I did that. Just put him back on there. The audio, there we go. The audio on the Index, beautiful, arousing, sexy audio. I mean, these headphones sound amazing. The audio quality from them in some ways beats out like the Sennheiser 595s that I use. Not in all aspects of general audio for music listening and stuff, but for VR specifically, where they're not resting on your ear, the sort of roundness and depth to the bass, and then the high frequency notes, and just the sort of three-dimensionality of the audio that you get from these. But it's obviously just stereo headphone speakers. Well, they're not even headphones or speakers, they're like a magical technology in between. But you know what I mean. At the end of the day, the audio on this headset is just phenomenal. It's incredible. Can't say anything better. I'm stroking it. Stroking the audio. Stroke that audio, boys. And girls. and people that identify as post boxes. Stroke the audio. So the audio is absolutely superb. The index, there's not more to be said. I mean, people have already gone over it before quite a bit. The index audio just smashes the absolute living hell out of the Rift S audio. You can there is an audio socket on the index, but it's behind the interchange and it's a little bit of an arse to get to. You might find using other headphones slightly easier with the index than the Rift S. I'm not sure if you'd want to though. I can see certain use cases where you'd want to use your own headphones, because if you're in a very noisy environment, obviously these are over the ear, so you can hear aspects of the very noisy environment. These are quite loud headphones when you turn them up. And there's a little bit of sound leak from this, not as much sound leak as you get from this device. So, you know, you can plug your own headphones into it with a socket there, and the socket's not the best positioned socket, it's just behind the interface, just up here. But in terms of integrated audio, my God, absolutely amazing. So, index for audio, congratulations. Next on to a controversial and probably different for each user aspect. The comfort. Now, isn't this with comfort, it's largely there's gonna be many aspects to it that depend on the shape of your head. Obviously, look at my nose, a massive Robert Kubica type nose. Makes me better at driving simulated cars, but you know, I mean, I can balance headsets on it, so that's a bonus. So, all said and done, what I would say is the index, in terms of the actual back strap and how that cups the back of your head, in terms of how easily you can get it on and off your head and how it keeps its same sort of position and everything, and the general build quality and everything, in that sense, it beats out the comfort of the Rift S. However, the index does weigh, it's bloody heavy. It's bloody heavy. And what you notice with the Rift S, even more so if you're going from side to side from these headsets, is that it's a lot lighter than the index and feels a lot lighter when you're using it. You also have with the Rift S the fact that it also just feels more airy on the face, and it doesn't warm up like the index does. The index gets quite warm on the front of where the front screens are, and also when you run in the view, so the lenses are right up against your eyes, you can feel that warmth onto your eyeballs. So it might dry some people's eyeballs out. I don't know, but so what I'm getting to is the overall design of this is a more comfortable design, but because this is lighter and less warm on the face, in many ways, this is a more comfortable headset, despite the strap not being as comfortable and the back part not being as comfortable and the foam not being as comfortable. At the end of the day, basic physics kind of wins out in that more airy and lighter is generally more comfortable, even if aspects of the other aspects of the design are less comfortable. So, I mean, so what I'm saying is the ideal situation would be is if the index was close to as heavy as this, or if the Rift S used the index design but remained the same sort of weight, you would, the Rift S you would pick like every day. You'd be like, oh, Rift S. So I think for comfort, the Rift S wins in most regards. But again, you have to sort of factor in as well that you are getting the better headphones on this. So if you're using other headphones, and that actually changes the comfort equation quite a bit, and you get the larger field of view, and the ability to just put it on and off your head quickly with the way the strap works and what have you. So it's like it's kind of unfair to directly compare the devices in a sense like that. But I think I might give overall comfort to Rift S. As I say, if the Rift S had the index features, it would win the comfort thing straight away. So Rift S, I'm giving the Rift S a controversial for comfort there, ignoring the headphone aspect of it. In which case, maybe it's more of a sort of draw. No draws here. Rift S, we can't do draws, that's cheaping out. We're giving that to the Rift S. Controversial, that's an argument in the comments. Controllers, we've moved from one controversy to the next. It's a controversy regatta. So the Rift S controllers are basically exactly the same as the original Oculus Rift controllers. The Rift S controllers come with the Rift S in the package with the headset for the $399 price. We've got prices in category as well, so I don't want to go too much into that later. I'll do that later on. The fact of the matter is, so the actual holding on to this and being able to hold it loose, that aspect absolutely destroys this aspect of the controller with the index knuckles controller. I'll just call it the index controller because I guess that's what it is now. The sort of general feature set of like the finger tracking is really nice on this, and that's a really nice feature set to have. And the general design and ergonomics of the index controller is better than the general ergonomics of the Rift S controller. When it comes to like guns and reload them and stuff, we find with the index control, the Rift S controller, is that sometimes the tracking loop gets in the way of the other controller, and you can knock them together easily when you bang them against your face if you bring them up close to your headset. Obviously, when you own a Rift S and once you get used to it, you don't do that because you learn ways of using it. Whereas with this, you never really find that the shields get in the way of what you're doing whilst you're playing games. It feels very seamless, and it feels very like you're more using your hands in VR. However, when we talked about this in the review for the index, the actual joystick placement, the feel of the joystick, and the button placement on the index controllers is nowhere near as good as the feel of the joystick and the button placement on the Rift S controllers. So when it comes to sort of the basic practicality of just playing VR games and the buttons and the joystick being in the right place and just getting on with it, the Rift S controllers just work and function as you'd expect them to. Like once you've used these for a week, you're like, well, everything's just fine. It doesn't feel wonky or off at all. Now, admittedly, I've only had these for 3 days now, and I've put a fair bit of time into them, but even with that in mind, I can totally see myself getting used to the general layout of the buttons, but you can't get over the fact that the joystick just feels really cheap and tacky. And there's definitely like an actual manufacturing, I would say it's probably a manufacturing issue with how the joystick works in terms of pushing the joystick down, but just in terms of the joystick feel and just in terms of the joystick and button layout, is actually, it just doesn't feel as immediately nice there as the Rift S controller. So the ergonomics for holding it wins out, but button placement doesn't. The feature set wins out, but the feature set on this is not as good as this, but it works perfectly fine, so we don't care. The real kicker, though, when it comes to the controller, is in the price aspect, but that's a separate category, guys. So which controller wins out? If I'm just looking at the controllers and ignoring price, I would still say that the index controller wins out over the Rift controller, but the buttons on top are bloody annoying. But that ergonomic strap aspect is really, really nice. So that's why I kind of err towards these over the Rift S controllers. But the Rift S controllers are fantastic. It's probably a draw in many ways for different reasons, ignoring the price. But I'm going to go for the index. We're going for the index on that one. No draws here. Headset tracking. So obviously the Rift S uses inside-out tracking, whereas the index uses lighthouses. So when it comes to the actual headset tracking, I'm not talking about the controller tracking, just the headset tracking. Well, I will amalgamate the controller tracking into this as well, so bear with me. The actual headset tracking works absolutely flawlessly, perfectly fine on this headset, and you also get the advantage that you don't have to put your lighthouses up to do that. You plug this into your computer, and you've got the tracking there, and away you go. So the headset tracking, though you do notice that it feels slightly more precise on the index, it does seem like the headset tracker's got a slightly higher fidelity, and I think part of that also comes from the higher frame rate. Just the raw convenience aspect, and I know people that have got lighthouses, it's not hard to put your lighthouses up, it's not the end of the world, but there is, you have to still concede that there's a basic convenience aspect to the tracking on this headset coming from the cameras, and it just working and you go, especially if you're playing flight and driving simulators where you're not going to use hand controls or anything. So the headset tracking, I'm going to give the victory, le victoire, to the Rift S. Well done, Facebook, again, with all your cameras to watch me naked and sell me adverts. Actually, that's quite creepy. But we're going with it. I don't mind. Mark Zuckerberg, he likes it, so it's all good. And I have to say, I've spent, since the Oculus recently did a update to the tracking on the Rift S a couple of days ago. And that has made a huge difference to the actual tracking quality and fidelity with these in terms of bringing the controllers closer to your face. And it basically means you can now play archery games and shooter games perfectly fine with the Rift S, whereas before you'd struggle. So the update to the Rift S controllers makes a huge difference, definitely makes it usable. Having said that, the lighthouse tracking, assuming you put your lighthouse in the two corners of your room, the lighthouse tracking is just on another level of fidelity. You certainly notice when shooting and playing aiming games, especially using like sniper scopes with the Rift S controller, you notice that there's more actual sort of underlying smoothing on the headset side rather than it picking up your absolute raw movements or sort of like your very precise stable movements. You notice there's a bit more smoothing there. You also notice with the Rift S controller that when you're aiming in certain scenarios, occasionally, even this is after the update, it will still sometimes glitch and jump. And also there is a limit to how close you can put it to your face. So you can put the Valve index controllers much closer to your face still without issue compared to these controllers. With the index controllers, you literally, like, it's absolutely extraordinarily precise, like mind-blowing. Like when I'm holding a gun and I'm really concentrating on it, I can actively see my sort of my pulse affecting the movement, and it's a very granular and it doesn't look smooth, whereas when you're doing that with this controller it can just look a little bit more smooth. In terms of your average VR game, these are fine. That, your vast majority of VR games, anything single player, these are fine. If anything, the frame rate limitations are going to affect you more than the controller accuracy when it comes to like 11 table tennis or sports games. I won multiple games to stand out with these and these controllers. These work fine, but it's just a fact of the matter that the accuracy of the tracking of the Lighthouse with both this and the original Vive ones is just on another level. If this is like 90% perfect tracking, this is say 99.9% perfect tracking. You know what I mean? Both work fine, but this just takes it to an absolute another level of raw fidelity for actual hand accuracy and consistency as well. The tracking consistency on the Index and Lighthouse is just way more consistent than it is on the Rift S. Again, just to reiterate, tilt and rotation is typically done by the IMU's accelerometers, gyros on the controllers, whereas that is going to be basically the same on both controllers because it's fundamentally the same sort of technology. Whereas the actual that kind of movement, three-dimensional movement, that depends on the cameras in the case of the Rift S and the Lighthouse with this, and that movement is a lot better with the Index controllers. So yeah, accuracy. The Index controllers, any Lighthouse controller, absolutely. I would say it smashes the Index controller, but to reiterate again, because I don't want to upset them fanboys, this works perfectly fine. If you're an esports person, you would go for this straight away. If you're really anal about getting high scores in games and you're as precise as possible, you would go for this. So that was a separate category I didn't have on there. That's controller accuracy and controller tracking. Index winner. Congratulations, Valve, for Lighthouse. Lighthouse is actually incredible. It's incredible. I've got a real a real weird obsession with Lighthouse. I like them laser beams in my eyes. I don't like those cameras in my eyes, I have to say. I'm like a cat, an infrared cat. Software. So when it comes to the software, basically, obviously you can use the Rift S with Steam, but you can't use the Index with the Oculus stuff. I mean, you can use Revive to play Oculus games, but you're not getting into Oculus, the internal Oculus software using the Index. So what I would say is that the sort of Oculus software and the setup of that software and just the updating of the controllers when you first get it is more seamless, more intuitive, and better presented than it is on the Index. I'd also say setting up your room space and how that works, how you point it out and how you do the floor and everything by doing the controller on the floor, and just how seamless that is, and the fact that the cameras actually do the sort of mixed reality view of the room to help you set up and everything, and that all works out of the box. The Index software is just way more polished and a way nicer general user experience than Steam VR is. Steam VR software does give you more sort of granular options in a sense, and that there's more that you can choose from, and it does have a lot there, and it does work really well. I'd say Oculus, the asynchronous space warp is better with the Oculus, but the Steam smoothing and the reprojection stuff actually works really well now. So that aspect's fairly comparable between the two headsets, where in the past the space warp absolutely destroyed the Vive, for example. But yeah, I have to just say that the software side of the Index feels more like you're sort of an experimental, more of like a beta type thing. Definitely not like a very mass market software. If you're like a PC orientated PC gamer and you don't mind fiddling a little bit more, not that it's a bad fiddle or that it's a real pain in the arse, but if you don't mind that, then the Index software is totally fine. But for most people, and just for basic ease of use and just getting going, jumping in VR, this software on the Rift S is better than it is on the Index. It's better than Steam VR. So I'm going to give the software to the Rift S. Congratulations, Facebook. Good job on the software. That's probably Carmack. Carmack's out of control. What another legend of VR, guys. John Carmack. Oh, man. I need a poster of him that I can just pray to every other day. Oh, dear. Not every day, like 4 times a day, 5 times a day. I just need John Carmack tattooed on my retina. What a legend. Ah, Carmack. Right. Let's not get distracted by the glory of the Carmack. Ease of use. So, I mean, this is a pretty easy one. Following on from what I just said about the software and the general setup, the Rift S is easier to use. Fundamentally, it's easier to use. It's not hard to use an Index, but the Rift S is easier to use. So let's just give that. Don't need to say much about that. Rift S. Well done, Rift S. Congratulations, you're more easy to use than the Index. Cost. This is where it gets complicated. So if you're just talking about the headset, which you can't really do because the Rift S comes with the controllers, it's like a whole thing, so you can't separate it out. But if we were to just talk about the headset, the Index, the Index, I think it's £460. I hope I haven't got that right. I think that's right. Whereas the Rift S is £400. In terms of value for money, just talking about the headset, the Index is insane value for money. Like all the aspects I've talked about, they're positives: field of view, sound, the general build quality, and everything. Like the Index for that that's insane. I don't know how Valve have managed to do this piece of hardware for that price. It's bonkers. Bear in mind you've got 2 screens in there as well. Just everything that's gone into it, all the R&D for the headset unit itself. That is ridiculous value for money. If you've already got like a Vive and you're going to keep your lighthouses, you just get this straight away because this headset is bonkers value for money. Now, I don't think this is bad value for money for the Rift S. The crucial point is, I mean, obviously the build quality is a little bit tacky, but then it's also lighter. But the crucial thing is you get the whole VR out of the box for the £400 with this. You get the controllers and everything. Where the Index absolutely fails on price is the fact that you have to also get, if you don't already own the Lighthouse units, you have to get the Lighthouse units, which I think you can get them from the Steam store. I think they're like £160 each. So that's another 200. That's like another £300 or something. I might be wrong with the price in there, but it's over £100 for each Lighthouse. And then the controllers are £260. And when you've added the controllers and the Lighthouses, it's like, well, yeah, the headset you can buy on its own for incredible value. I think the gasket could do with slightly stronger magnets. Mind you, I don't think people are normally waving it around like a lunatic. It's not something that's been a problem unless I'm making videos. Stay on there, gasket. Yeah, you can buy the headset separately, but the controllers, and you buy the controllers separately. But for the 260, and if you're buying, it's £912 if you're buying it all together. For £912 as a full package, it's like the Rift S gets you into VR. The Rift S lets you experience VR, and it works perfectly fine. It's not the best. It definitely feels compromised in many ways, and it's not got the fidelity. It's not got all the really nice aspects of this headset. But the Rift S is perfectly usable. The Rift S is definitely the best value for money option that I would go for if you're like, I want to get into VR. I want a generally good VR experience. I'm going to be able to take part in all the VR games that are available to a pretty high level, and I don't have to set anything else up, and it's going to be a relatively seamless software experience. The Rift S for sheer value for money and cost, I think the Rift S beats out the Valve Index complete package especially with the controllers. I mean, these bloody controllers. It beats out the Index as a complete package. You'd have to be insane to argue that £400 versus £900, given the difference in experience on that level. But then if you're just getting the Index headset on its own, the headset is incredible value for money. It just blows my mind that Valve, if they just offered some type of controller option that was cheaper and the price of the Lighthouses were cheaper, it's like, well, then this is just like 100% clear winner for everybody. So I'm giving the sort of cost value for money to the Rift S on that one, with the reasons I've just stated. So, dear. What's the conclusion then? What's the overall conclusion? That's what we're here for. I have to say there are a couple of points that I haven't talked about. One point is the Rift S still has the white static thing that occurs like once every. It can happen once every 5 minutes. It could happen like once every 30 minutes. It seems to be totally random, where you just get a sudden single frame of white static, like a 90s TV. That is not being fixed. Oculus, I don't think, know how to fix it yet, and fundamentally, that's a bit of a problem because that really does ruin immersion. So that's the thing there, and also you do notice occasionally you do get sort of like a tracking judder that can occur on occasion with the Rift S. So that's worth putting in there and letting you know about. With the Index, occasionally you do notice that you sometimes do get occasional headset tracking judder as well. It might be because there's like a handoff between the two Lighthouses. It might depend on how well I've set the Lighthouses up. It might be because a specific game or software is just like judded or something. But it does seem like there's a general judder, not that dissimilar to the frequency that you get on the Rift S. It's probably just like a nuance of the fact of how much crazy, absolutely insane stuff is going on with both these headsets to do the tracking. And then, so the other question is that I keep getting asked is people are like, which headset should I buy? And I think it really just comes down to if you've already got a Vive or you've got Lighthouse and you're keeping them, you just get this. You get the index. That's the obvious. You just get the index. If you're just looking for an introduction to VR and you're like, what's the best value for money way into VR? You get the Rift S, and then you see how you find it, and then you might want to change, spend more on getting an index for the high frame rates and the other features that are really nice features and are better than the Rift S in totality. I mean, in totality, the index is a better headset than the Rift S. In totality, so you're paying more. You're getting a better headset in totality than you are with the Rift S. That's why you're paying more. Yes, people are trying to make a choice. They're like, I don't know what to pick. Tell me. I'm not going to tell you. You have to work it out for yourself. Lastly, so if I was to, with the index, as I say, the controller thing and the price of the controller is so dumb. And the lighthouses, but Pimax are coming out with essentially rip-off controllers. That's probably unfair to Pimax. Very well engineered after responding and looking at the market controllers. Pimax I've not tested them, so I don't know if they actually work well and how good they are. They're coming out with controllers which are like a weird amalgamation of the Knuckles or the Index and the Rift controller. It's like they've mated and a baby was born. Those controllers, I think they're on their website for $300, and they sell them in a touchpad variant or a gamepad, joypad, a touchpad or a joypad with buttons on it variant. So you can choose either. And they come with Lighthouse units for $300. So if those Pimax controllers actually work, and if the Pimax Lighthouses work with the Index, then that would save quite a significant sum of money and be, I believe, a very good choice going for the Pimax controllers, or maybe if another company does Lighthouses for a good price, where you go for this headset in that scenario, and you really would just ignore the Rift S. Most people would just ignore the Rift S, I think, in that scenario. But so there you go. I mean, I did miss out something. The cameras on the Index, it does have 2 cameras. Valve, maybe you could use these for sort of a simplified inside-out tracking for people that just want to play driving simulators, and then they wouldn't have to buy any Lighthouse units, and they could just buy this headset at a cracking price and have an absolutely amazing VR headset for flight and driving simulators without all the other cost. Maybe that would happen. We'll see. They've not done the software for it yet. So again, aspects of this do feel like unfinished and beta-y. But there you go, guys. There you go. Valve Index versus Rift S. Index, obviously the best overall headset, but it costs more. Rift S, the easiest one to get into VR with, works perfectly fine, best value for money. Again, didn't help you at all there, probably, but maybe it did. So let me know in the comments if it did. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. I've talked way too much as usual. Don't forget to click the like button, because YouTube collapses if you don't. And don't forget to also click the glorious subscribe button if you want to see more, if you want to do more VR content and you just want to be kept abreast of what's going on in Game of Muscle Land. Click that bell as well, because YouTube just deletes your subscribe, otherwise you might as well not clicked it. There you go, guys. Until the next one, thanks for watching, happy tea drinking, and goodbye.